name is Lauren Lim. I'll be attending the University of Nevada for the PSNP program.
My name is Andrew Berryessa. I will be attending Cornell University.
My name is McKenna LeVay, and I'll also be attending the University of Nevada. Our unit coach and teacher is Mr. Richard Clark.
All right, unit 4, today we are going to do question 3. James Madison wrote that the problem to be solved is not what form of government is perfect, but which of the forms is least imperfect. The choice is then between a Republican government in which the majority rule the minority and a government in which a lesser number or the least number rule the majority. The least imperfect is the will of the majority. What arguments can you make to support the principle of majority rule among political equals in making decisions that affect them? How can the majority overriding the will of the minority be justified? What position do you take on this question and why? Are there any situations in which a minority should be allowed to block the will of the majority? What examples in our system of minorities blocking the will of majorities can you identify? How might they be justified? Explain your position. Please begin.
In 1947, Winston Churchill agreed with James Madison when he claimed, "No one pretends that democracy is perfect or all wise. Indeed, it has been said that democracy is the worst form of government, except for all other forms that have been tried." Knowing democracy is not perfect, Madison did his homework before the Philadelphia Convention, favoring the idea of Republican majority rule, as shown through the tenets of his Virginia Plan and in Federalist 39, when he stated, "It is evident that no other form would be reconcilable with the genius of the people of America."
The debates of majority rule date back to antiquity. Aristotle explains how the majority and minority coexist. An oligarchy is said to be that in which the few and the wealthy, and a democracy that in which the many and the poor are the rulers. While Cicero claims, in a republic this rule ought to be observed, that the majority should not have the predominant power.
Majority rule is a powerful force in combating tyranny. The Declaration of Independence states, "A prince whose character is thus marked by every act which may define a tyrant is unfit to be the ruler of a free people." In Stalinist Russia, the working class composed 85% of the population, but did not have the voting power to overthrow the communist regime.
Helene Landemore, professor at Yale University, stated, "Majority rule maximizes individuals' autonomy. Through his or her vote, every member of the group is given a chance at some amount of self-rule." North Korea functions under a one-party totalitarian state, where fundamental rights like free speech are denied because the majority do not have the sovereignty to govern themselves.
We agree the majority overriding the will of the minority can be justified when among equals because the minority usually has a remedy to voice its concerns. According to Professor Anthony McGinn, majority rule is the only decision that completely satisfies the political equality.
Cases in the Supreme Court are decided purely upon the majority of the 9 justices. However, the rule of 4 in dissents are a remedy for the minority. To bring a case forward, only 4 justices are needed to grant a writ of certiorari to prevent the majority from controlling the court's docket. In the 1996 case, U.S. v. Virginia, Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg's dissent was strong enough to sway the votes to make her opinion the new majority.
There are 2 types of majority rule, just and unjust. Majority rule is unjust if it is inflicted on a minority who have no part in enacting or devising the law. On March 9th, Iowa passed House Bill 516, which requires voters to present some sort of identification on election day. But according to the American Civil Liberties Union, minority voters disproportionately lack ID, giving the majority an unjust advantage over a high-risk, low-reward crime.
However, the government can protect fundamental privileges of a minority, seen in the 1982 Supreme Court case, Plyler v. Doe. The court ruled Texas could not deny undocumented children the right to education by requiring a $1,000 tuition fee, promoting equal protection. In the Senate, despite the nuclear option, Rule 22 still allows the minority to filibuster a bill in order to prevent the majority from quickly passing their legislation.
Additionally, under committee rules, the Senate requires 1 member of the minority to recommend presidential appointments. The Democratic senators postponed President Trump's nomination for the Department of Health and Human Services to Tom Price by simply not showing up to vote. It is vital that the minority party can block the majority in order to keep both parties equally powerful.
In Federalist 10, Madison emphasizes the importance of balance between majority and minority in a Republican government when both are treated as political equals. If a faction consists of less than a majority, belief is applied by the Republican principle, which enables the majority to defeat its sinister views by regular vote. It may clog the administration, it may convulse the society, but be unable to execute and mask its violence under the forms of the Constitution. Thank you.
So, in an election with 3 or more candidates, how might a winner-take-all or first-past-the-post electoral system, which confers victory upon the candidate who gets the most votes, violate the principle of majority rule?
We have in Nevada a $1,000 fine for faithless elector laws, and so we are required to vote with the party that wins the electoral vote in our state. And I think that violates the minority's right to participate if there are 3 candidates, because it doesn't allow a fair proportion if being a swing state, if we are very split and it's a very close vote.
I'd also argue on the premise of your question that essentially we need to look at the local level and look at this idea of open primaries and allowing us to vote for these independent parties instead of keeping this Republican-Democrat winner throughout the United States.
I would argue that we should switch instead of winner takes all just to proportional representation instead. As we can see in New Zealand, once they switched over to proportional representation, much more political parties were allowed because our system makes it hard to have multiple political parties. So it'll always be hard to only have 2 candidates.
Okay, does the American electoral system consistently work by majority rule?
Well, the electoral system actually goes to majority rule as form of the electoral college, us voting for electors that go and represent us in the electoral college. However, the United States actually operates under a plurality, so that there, according to Duverger's law, that the winner, that there's only, that only promotes the 2-party system.
Just to clarify what my colleague was saying, he didn't mean that we elect the electors who elect the president, but our states, their parties, whichever the majority of our state goes for, is who ends up electing the president.
Additionally, I do believe that the minority is actually overrepresented in the electoral college because of the Reapportionment Act of 1929. There's a set number for our electoral college, and since 1929, a smaller state like Montana has only doubled its population, where a large state like California has grown 7 times its population. Therefore, because of the one-vote system, Montana is overrepresented, and their votes count more than the population in California.
We can see that even in this past election, that even if Secretary Clinton had won, it still wouldn't have been a majority rule situation because she only won 48% of the popular vote. She still only had a plurality, but this isn't necessarily a bad thing because we've seen great presidents be elected on a plurality, like for example, Abraham Lincoln.
Do you think the principle of the electoral college system is at odds with or inconsistent with the principle of political equality here in the United States?
I would say that the electoral college in fact ensures that political equality because without that, if the candidate just had to go to each city that was one of the largest in that state, then it'd be much easier for those people to be represented instead of the smaller or rural areas.
Additionally, the founders did put the electoral college in the Constitution, Article 2, Section 1, Clause 2, 3, and 4. So they're very thorough with outlining this Constitution, but I don't think they could foresee the growth of our country that have made put this unbalance with political equality, as mentioned with the population statistics earlier.
Are there advantages to be gained by switching to a direct popular vote and abolishing the electoral college?
Well, we can see that Secretary Clinton could have won the popular vote if she only won cities like Los Angeles, New York City, Miami, and Chicago, and that could ignore all of the more rural parts of the state. And coming from a slightly more rural part in Nevada, that could have disproportionately represented a majority of our state, considering that 80% of our land is federal land.
But due to the 17th Amendment, we do have the ability to directly elect our senators, and we do have the ability to directly elect our representatives in the House. So if we stay with this electoral college system, this doesn't mean that we don't have a voice in our government because we do directly elect the Congress, and then of course our justices, it's important that they are nominated and appointed.
And an advantage of a direct popular vote would promote majority rule by just whoever wins all the votes is the president of the United States, who's the Supreme Court.
Additionally, I think the electoral college works well because we have 2 separate branches of Congress, and the Senate ensures that we have equality among the states, and then we do have the House that is for the people.
violation of majority rule?
I think supermajorities are very important. Article 2, Section 2, Clause 2, there needs to be 2/3 of the Senate to approve treaties. And treaties are often international agreements that are very important to not only affect our country, but our relationships with many other countries like NAFTA, which is the North Atlantic Free Trade Agreement. And therefore, it's not just affecting America, therefore it's more important and needs a supermajority.
I would argue that even the process to make amendments, which requires a supermajority given in Article 5, protects majority rule because the amendments to the Constitution affect the entire country, which is the biggest majority.
However, I disagree and say the fact that they need a supermajority given in Article 1, Section 7 to override presidential vetoes is too much because it's like one person vetoing and they should require less than a supermajority.
The supermajority also protects minority rights by requiring some of the minority to be on board with a particular issue.
Great job, well-prepared statement. You guys touched on all of the things that we were looking for. Particularly impressed with the proportional representation argument. I'm a comparative law nerd at heart, so I like when you throw in other countries. I think you did a good job passing the baton down the way.
Good job, great presentation. You clearly did your homework, you have a good understanding of the issue. Great participation, keep up the good work.
I agree with my colleagues, that was a terrific presentation. I was really struck by the quality of your introduction. It was rich in history, you touched on Aristotle and Cicero, and to lead with Churchill is a great way, because everybody's hero. The reality is that you explained the departures from the practice of majority rule in our constitutional system, and why, for example, on the amendatory clause or the treaty clause, and so you're able to justify your positions very effectively. I thought that was impressive. You brought your discussion to red-hot current issues, including voter ID, so that was very, very important. And I think in the end that you showed that as a team, you practiced very good chemistry, passed the baton almost seamlessly. So you really did good work, and you're obviously very well prepared. Let's give a nice round of applause.